Welcome to another chapter of In the Keep. I'm your very own prophet of the drowned god, the Motherlode, and this show is all about the world of first-person shooters, their legacies, their lineage, and the people who keep that world turning. It is the will of the drowned god Katala that we band together to frag and jib one another into oblivion for all eternity. As always, I want to start off by saying thank you to all of the Keep's supporters. You truly are the keepers of the faith. I'm talking about Dots, Moose, Paul, Zach, Alexander, Lashaka, Brad, Night Owl, Tones, Jeffrey, Larissa, Nabe, Steve, NVZ, Catman, Samiko, and Chibi Sniper, all of whom have given in some way to the Keep, whether that be through Patreon, through PayPal, a credit card donation, buying stuff through our Amazon links, buying merchandise from our Redbubble store, or becoming a Nitro booster over on Discord, or even just being a subscriber on our Twitch page. All of this is greatly appreciated, and we thank you. The Drowned God Kathala thanks you. You're all amazing. If you would like to join that wonderful group of people, you can. All of the links that you need to do so are over on inthekeep.com. Just click the join support link, and that will take you to quakefans.net, where we have a page there with all of our links set up. And I also recommend you check out quakefans.net because Smango is a boss, and I love him, and he's an amazing person. And all of the content over there is relevant to you. If you're a fan of In the Keep, I'm sure of it. All right, let's just try to keep all that stuff short today. I just want to get straight into it. We are talking today with Hakita, who is the developer of a wonderful new first-person shooter game called ULTRAKILL. And ULTRAKILL, we're going to talk a lot about it, directly in the interview, but I just want to preface this saying it is a very unique new type of experience within this retro shooter genre or whatever. You're gonna dig it. You can go get it for free now on itch.io, or I recommend that you go over to Steam and follow the project so that when it does get an actual monetary release that you can do it there as well. But I really enjoyed this. This is one of those conversations where I ended up talking to him for another hour or so after we were done, just kind of hitting it off in a lot of ways. Because we're people who think alike, and I think that you can hear that through the conversation as well. But anyway, hey, let's get after it. The music you're hearing is from the original soundtrack to ULTRAKILL. Without any further ado, let's get in the Keep with Hakita.
I'm Arsti Patala, aka Hakita, because most people don't remember my actual name. I'm a game developer, kind of. I'm currently making a game called ULTRAKILL, and that's about it.
I heard about ULTRAKILL from Quake Fans Radio. Smango was talking about it on a recent episode, and I hadn't heard anything about it. And I went immediately and checked it out. One of the things that kind of stood out to me just from the trailers themselves was the graphics, and that they literally look like an N64. Was that intentional, or how did you arrive at that decision?
I specifically tried to go for a sort of PlayStation 1 look, because I grew up with a PlayStation 1 game, so I really had always a soft spot for the really low resolution, like crusty and texture warping stuff, because there's a certain aesthetic to PlayStation 1 games that, for an example, Nintendo 64 didn't really have, which is the sort of gritty and grimy look.
Yeah.
Whereas Nintendo 64 games used to be, or at least from my memory, are pretty sort of soft and easier on the eyes.
Yeah, now that you say that, it kind of does. I guess what I'm trying to say is that era, specifically, and more so than a lot of the games. We see a lot of games now that are being published is retro shooter, low res graphics, and then yours is a very distinct art style that doesn't, it doesn't look like Doom, it doesn't look like anything else. It looks like a Tomb Raider game or something like that.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is because I didn't actually grow up with retro shooters.
Yeah,
because I didn't really I had played Doom obviously and Duke Nukem 3D, but I didn't really get into them until Dusk came out, and I was that was just like, okay, there's something here I've been missing, and I really have to get back in here. So actually, when I started ULTRAKILL, it's not really even a retro shooter, because it does take sort of retro inspirations, but it has a very different kind of take on it. Because I actually started that before I really got into retro shooters, and it was more just like I just wanted to do the graphic style because I was really into that graphic style. I think it's underused.
One of the things I was trying to explain to a friend maybe a few minutes ago before we got in here to do this interview what this game was like, because they hadn't seen it or tried it. And yeah, it's really kind of hard to describe because it's really easy to call it like, oh, it's a retro shooter because it is a shooter and it's, it looks old. But yeah, this is one of those really awesome cases where the gameplay itself is totally unique. I can't even think of anything else. It's like, I know it's not a rhythm based game, but it feels that way in the way that the combat works, where you kind of like have to jump and dash and like time everything and watch the enemies, the way that they move, especially the boss fights, particularly the sword master. Like you kind of memorize a rhythm to the way that he attacks and then move, or at least I did. I started to move preemptively according to how I knew he was going to act. And then it became a really fun challenge.
Yeah, because people often say, because I keep saying that ULTRAKILL is a sort of combination of FPS and character action, which is games like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta and stuff. And people often say, oh, you're just saying that because it has a combo meter. But like, just in terms of everything that's sort of under the hood, it's very much been designed based on Devil May Cry 3, because that's like my favorite game of all time. So sort of that's why it has a very different feel to it, and why the sort of how should I say, the priorities are so different from these usual shooters.
I also like the resource management isn't such a big factor. It's more like, you douse yourself in enemy blood to regain health. And that makes the game very the nature of it is that it's somewhat linear, and it's, you kind of have the timer going, so it's like try to move through it really quickly, and it's very, very cool movement goes into this. And then because I'm not managing like ammo and different, types of weaponry, at least yet, I feel very focused on the task at hand, which is to just have fun and move constantly forward and kill the enemies.
Yeah, and especially the sort of, because this is actually kind of a chicken and egg situation, which is I wanted to have this sort of healing system that's entirely just pushing you, like you have to play aggressive because that's the only way you can get health. But also I wanted to make the game so that you had very little health, or at least enemies do a ton of damage, so that you actually have to learn how enemies and bosses and stuff work. Because that's a big problem I noticed while I was playing Devil May Cry 5, is that it has amazing bosses if you play in the highest difficulty. Otherwise, the bosses are just like, yeah, they're okay, but in like lower difficulties, you don't actually have to learn them, so you don't realize how intricate they are.
Right.
So I really wanted to sort of make it that kind of, like everything in the game is a glass cannon, so you really have to know what you're doing when you're doing it.
Let's kind of back up a little ways. Like, when did you kind of start getting into gaming itself, and then what led you to want to ultimately create a game?
Oh boy, that is like way back in my childhood, because I've been gaming for like as long as I can remember, really. I used to be the kid who was like not interested in making a whole lot of friends or doing sports or anything, because I was just like, I want to play some fucking games, man. So I was always just playing like Crash Bandicoot and stuff. And when we initially got a PC in like mid 2000s, I got really into Game Maker, which is like a really simplified game development platform, or at least was back then. I don't know how it is anymore, but so I used to make these really bad platformers, and that was more of just like a little funsies thing. And then properly I got into game development a couple of years back when I was thinking about education. I was like, fuck, what are things I like? I like movies, I like music. Well, I didn't get into any movie or music schools. Fuck it, I'll do game development.
Yeah.
And then I just sort of, as soon as I started actually making a game, I was like, okay, this actually, I really, really enjoy this. I need to do this as much as I can.
when you did decide, like, I want to make games, why this type of game?
Well, previously I was me and a friend from a previous school who's also actually helping with this game. That's Tony Stigel.
Mm.
We were working on a stealth game, and that was sort of we worked on it for like a month or so. But then, interestingly, when I came to this current game development school that I'm at, I gave it to one of the guys here, and he played it for like a minute or something, and then it just stopped, and he's like, "Okay, this just isn't fun," and that sort of like made me realize that, oh fuck, during the entire development of this stealth game, I never actually thought about like what like how I can make it fun, because I just assumed because it's cool, because it really had some really interesting ideas, so I just assumed because it's interesting it has to be fun, but obviously that didn't happen. So then I sort of started to, like I scrapped the whole idea. I'm like, okay, I need to think of everything that I think is fun. I think over the top action is fun, over the top cartoonish violence is fun, um, things like that. And then I just, okay, I'll make a game that's combining all these things into one, so that I'll make sort of what I think is fun about games into one solid thing.
I don't know, man. It's a really cool hodgepodge that's kind of, I don't know. This is a truly unique game. That's really the way I see it, is that I'm going to say that a lot of times during this interview. Like, I can't think of anything else like it. And some of the combat mechanics I find particularly fun, especially like sliding and everything. And then, you can do the midair dashes. How did you, like, why did you decide to have that be the mechanic? It's not it's not grounded in realism in any way. That's
Oh
really cool.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, like, I mean, I was just thinking, like, basically, like, okay, evasive maneuvers. Obviously, you have to have multiple, so that you have this sort of constant thing going on in your head where you have to decide, okay, do I want to slide? Do I want to jump? Do I want to dash? You have to constantly be thinking about these things and what's the most useful in each situation. So the dashing came from Devil May Cry 3, because that has like a triple dash thing with Trickster style. And the slide comes from Titanfall 2, I think, because I was really into that at one point. And just like moon jumps, I wanted, because not only is it like really fun for mobility, but also it's really useful because it's like in the air you're always a lot safer than on the ground. But also to keep the gravity sort of low, so that you actually have time to aim while you're in the air, because otherwise it would just be annoying to have to constantly jump.
And what I'm trying to, maybe it'll be revealed, maybe not, but I'm trying to get a grasp on the setting of the game, because it feels like a temple, but it also feels sort of futuristic. Like, I feel like I don't know, it's like almost like a future Egypt type thing. What's the actual background of the art style and the theme of the game?
Basic idea is sort of, I haven't actually put it in the game, so I'm not surprised that most people miss it, since I just put it on like storefronts and stuff. I will actually put it in the game at some point, but the basic premise is basically that like mankind has been wiped out by unknown forces or for an unknown reason, like hundreds of years ago, and now the only moving things left on Earth are basically these machines that have been built to be fed by blood. And now that like all the people have died, all the animals have died, there's just corpses on the surface. These machines are starting to run out of blood, and obviously the only thing left to do is to travel into hell itself to find more blood by killing the people that have already died, and the demons and all the machines and whatever they can find.
Okay, that's
So
an interesting take on the story.
it's a sort of prelude area, this sort of orange industrial hellscape. Like, the idea with that is that it's sort of like, it's supposed to be like generic, like what you would actually think like a mechanical hell would be, but it's actually not quite in hell yet. That's why it's the prelude, and at the end you fight Cerberus because you're finally entering hell. And then once you actually get to hell, you like open the door and just like blue sky and green grass, and like, what the fuck is going on? So it's sort of like a subversion in a way where it starts off kind of generic environments, but then you realize that it's going to be very different from here on out.
I don't know, that's just such an interesting direction for a story to go, because it almost sounds like a Matrix type situation, but then it has the added twist of, you know, going to hell and everything. Have you always been like into storytelling? You did mention earlier you were kind of into like film and other things before gaming.
I would say I'm not really into storytelling as much as I'm into interesting ideas, because
Okay.
I'm really bad at writing. I really don't have much of a way with words, but I really have all these interesting sort of, or at least what I think is interesting, like ideas that I want to like explore and put into sort of practice and see what comes out of those. So luckily, I know some people who can actually write, so it's not going to be terrible on that front. There's definitely a lot of ideas that I'm putting into this game that, if I can figure out how I want to convey them to the player, I think it's going to be very interesting, sort of, even from a story perspective, even though that's not the focus.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Everything about this is kind of shaping up to be unique. It's a unique way of telling a story. It's a fairly new take on that sort of story, at least. That's a common pretense, but you kind of need that. There has to be some sort of familiar ground to start off with. And I think a lot of people are going to pick this up thinking that they're, you know, getting into something like Quake, and that are going to be pleasantly surprised, like I was, because of how completely different the gameplay itself is.
I hope so too.
Yeah, it's like you're kind of dashing through these levels. Like I said earlier, they're fairly, you know, straight shot, linear, just fast paced action to the end grounds, and then you have you know, you can kind of go to the little, I forget what they're called, but the upgrade stations where you can buy, you know, upgrades for your weapons and such. Can you kind of just give us an idea of how you want the player, like how did you as the designer of the game intend for this game to be played? And then have you seen people maybe streaming it do it in different ways than you expected?
Yeah, definitely. Because, well, I mean, the baseline is that, like, first it started like I was like, okay, this game should be played like this specifically. But then, sort of, as I was developing it and giving it to people, I sort of was realizing that people, like, even though this is like the most fun way for me at least to play the game, it might not be for other people, which is why really wanted to give people enough options for different styles so that everyone can sort of find a way of playing that suits them the most, while still always pushing people towards playing as aggressively as possible, because I think that's what suits the game the best, and I think that's how you'll have the most fun, as long as you can still put your own spin on it, so to say.
Yeah. Do you know Zdravko Marinov? He's making Limitless Hunger, and when you were talking about kind of the lore of the game, it reminded me a bit of his project too, with the sort of the, like, heaven and hell future sort of thing. I was wondering if you guys had ever talked to each other.
No, I never actually heard of this game before, but I definitely have to take a look.
Yeah, it's cool. His is more of like, I'd say it's a bit more gameplay wise, like a typical Serious Sam or, you know, Doom style, just shooter with, you know, item management and everything. But yeah, he's been a guest on the show before, and I really enjoyed talking to him because of he's very into the storytelling aspect of you know, his game. Like, he's got a very mapped out idea of, like, you know, there's angels and demons are going to war and all this. Very, I would say he's interested in telling a story through these grand gestures of how, you know, how the characters interact and how it's giant, it's heaven and hell and all this sort of thing. And then I just wondered if you guys had communicated, because it's you're both doing like the sort of similar games on the Unity engine.
No, but the thing is, I'm kind of stumbling my way through the whole process, so I have barely talked to other developers at all. Because
Yeah.
I always feel like because it wasn't like I was basically a nobody. Well, I am a nobody, but I was a complete nobody still back like last year summer, until I released the demo, and suddenly, like, people start playing my game and stuff, and like it's been so sudden. I really haven't had time to realize I'm like a game developer now.
Yeah.
So the most I've done is like talk to some of the new blood guys because they're very easy to talk to. Luckily, very nice guys.
New Blood? Yeah,
Yeah.
I had David Szymanski on the show pretty recently. It's such a great guy. But all of them, everybody over at New Blood, super
Yeah,
cool.
definitely. All even all the like lesser known people like Scott and Hank, they're just really really wonderful people from what I've talked with them.
Mm-hmm. Are they giving you feedback or anything if you like let them play the demo? I know they do that sometimes. It's just kind of like, hey, we're testing this out for you and let you know what they think of it and everything.
Yeah, I definitely, especially with, I've been trying, like emphasis on trying to email Dave Oshry a lot with these like builds and stuff because like I really want to sort of get the quote unquote new blood opinion, but they're all very busy right now. They have like so many projects going on, so it's a bit hard to sometimes get like into contact with them, but that's really understandable. So it's been very helpful though what I've heard from them so far about the game.
Yeah, Dave Oshry can be he's very public, but also kind of hard to isolate him time wise. It's been a running theme on like probably the last 3 or 4 episodes of this show is people bringing up how exactly that subject, how hard it is to track down Dave Oshry. But yeah, man, I don't know. I hope that if you got picked up by New Blood, that'd be awesome. But I mean, there's plenty.
It would be, but really no, like don't expect much because they have like 7 or 8 projects going on right now. It's kind of ridiculous.
It's really interesting to watch them grow and everything. But
yeah, absolutely, because I really think they can make it big, like even bigger than they already are. But just like I think they can really become a sort of. I would maybe not a household name, but definitely something like a Devolver level where people like think indie, they think of Devolver or New Blood or something.
That's kind of the same box I put them in my head is like, Devolver is just like this great publisher that has a reputation for making the wildest, craziest games. And I think that New Blood's definitely on that sort of track. But I just appreciate them as people and for the games that they have made. Like that's the biggest thing.
And definitely, especially what I've heard from them, from sort of also like quote unquote under the hood, they just seem like they have all the sort of priorities I also have of like being really accepting and lenient of all the people who are working there and not like being like, oh, here's a deadline, you have to do this by this deadline and stuff, but they're just like letting people sort of grow and express themselves as best suits them. And I think we're really seeing the results of it because all the games they released have been really good, at least the ones I've played.
No, they're pretty much at this point synonymous with awesome games. Like them and like Andrew Hulshult's one of those people like that too, where I just think of if I see him put his name on a game, I know it's good. Period. Like
which is most games nowadays.
Yeah, he's done everything. He's done everything. It's crazy.
It is. Sometimes I just wonder, maybe he's overworking himself, but then I listen to like the stuff he does for the other games, and I'm just like, okay, never mind. He's still on the top of his game. Yeah. It's all great.
I realized that there was like recently on the show a 4-episode run, and I realized because I was trying to like, oh, maybe I should get the soundtracks to the games to put into the episode, and 4 in a row are all games he made. And I was like, fuck. So I messaged him like, hey, Andrew, would you stop working so hard, dude? Like, this is killing me.
Don't worry, Andrew won't make a song for ULTRAKILL.
No, he's a monster, dude. He just keeps going, and he's very passionate about his work and just super dedicated to his craft. And that's such an interesting thing is like he's carved out a niche, that doesn't really, most kids don't grow up thinking like, I'm going to make music for video games. Is a path that you could make a big name for yourself in. And like, furthermore, not just making music for video games, but this very particular genre. He's kind of, if you want to make a retro shooter, his name's going to come up in the list of who's going to do my soundtrack.
Definitely. And he has really good range as well, because not only can he do the like, obviously like the metal stuff that he's famous for, but also the ambient and sort of more experimental side that it keeps popping up in more recent games, like with Proteus. There's some really interesting ambience there,
Oh, for sure.
and
Yeah.
obviously with Dusk as well. There's some really really good ambience there. So it's like I'm really glad that he's sort of being able to get into so many games so that he can try as many styles out as possible.
Yeah. So, how's the soundtrack to your game shaping up? Like, it's really got its own thing going on. How did you put that together, and what's the direction of it?
That's kind of a wide question, but well, how I put it together is really just I have a guitar and I have a bass, so I play those, and I'm
Sick.
really bad at playing drums, so I just use electronic drums everywhere.
Cool.
I've been experimenting with sort of different ways of using a similar sound. So there's a really recently I just did a boss theme for a boss that I don't want to reveal yet, and that was sort of a very different take because I sort of wrote it in MIDI first and then adapted that into electronic and real instruments.
That's
So it
really
has a very
cool.
it has a very different sort of melodic take. And I'm also doing a soundtrack for a much less known Finnish retro shooter called White Hell, and that's basically the way we do it. There is I just write songs in MIDI and then we put it through like a cheap sound font to make it sound like a 90s bargain bin FPS music.
White Hell. I gotta check. I'm like literally just as you said that, I started typing, looking for it. Like, it
Yeah,
always.
it's very obscure because it's basically it's two guys are making it and they're my friends, and we basically started working on our project at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I, I've done this a couple of times, kind of on the show, where I feel like as I grow a catalog of people that I've interviewed, eventually I'm gonna be like indie shooter, uh, Cupid, where I'm just like, hey, if you talk to so and so, that kind of thing. But it's definitely interesting to watch people kind of, as you said, you're kind of in your own bubble developing, and then people that are like doing sort of the same thing in different parts of the world and not even aware of the other
Mm.
people doing it. It's really really fun to see that happen.
Yeah, it's interesting nowadays, especially making games, because
Yeah.
like you mentioned, like even though we're in different parts of the world and stuff, but like because of how sort of internet works nowadays, I have a couple people who have been helping me make ULTRAKILL.
Yeah.
It's like it's mostly a solo project, but I need help with stuff like models and drawings and stuff, and like there's only like one other person on that sort of team that's also Finnish, because there's like one Belgian guy, there's one Norwegian guy, there's a Swedish guy, there's a Australian guy, Russian guy. It's like from all over the world, and it's just thanks to the internet that's possible. Because otherwise, I would just basically be fucked because the game would be terrible.
Yeah, it's true. It's also easier for you to reach your audience. You're not like, you don't have to go through a distributor. Be realistic about, if you were to publish your game, who would you first go to? And then you'd have to deal with like,
Mm,
okay, I've got a European market, I've got an American market, I've got blah 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 blah. And
mm,
now it's just like you can upload it, put it on the internet, Steam or whatever, and hopefully
mm,
make a living, or at least an impact.
But also that also makes it sort of a bit more frightening in a way, because now even though you can release a game, that doesn't mean that you'll get noticed, because there's like what 40 games released on Steam every single day.
That's
So
true.
it's like you really have to, even though it's easy to release a game, you really really have to work to get noticed when you release a game.
I think that you have to, find that audience of people who really vibe with what you're doing. But
Mm,
you're right. It is a give and take. On all things are give and take. But in today's
mm,
age, I think there's never been a time where you can reach specifically the people who are into your little niche thing, whatever that happens to be. So
mm,
if it's, if I mean, I've built a podcast basically on the premise of this type of game, which is pretty rare in the grand scheme of things, and it's a growing genre and it's really cool. And I obviously love it very much, but it's different than if I were to say, like, I'm just going to do a gaming podcast where I could, talk about,
Yeah.
the biggest, newest AAA things or whatever. And that's not what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to appeal to people like yourself and myself who gravitate towards this type of game.
Yeah, and especially that sort of, even though that's a niche thing, that's actually making you stand out a lot more, because I don't think there's a whole lot of these retro shooter or even just FPS podcasts in general. So even though you're not sort of being like even though most people might not listen to your podcast, the people who actually care are much more likely to find it.
Right. That's what I'm trying to get at, is the people who are here, maybe they're not a lot of us, but we're really here. We really do care. Like, I'm not just some guy who's like trying to like go find, whatever games to talk about on my podcast, or I'm not trying to fuel a fire with that. I literally am passionate about the type of game that you're making. And
yeah, definitely. Please look forward to the episode of The Keep about Five Nights at Freddy's. It's gonna be wonderful.
It could happen. I don't know. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, if that guy wanted to talk, I'd probably have him on just to see.
Oh yeah. No, like if like I would fucking go on my knees in front of that dude. Like,
yeah.
Even though I don't really like those games, it's just like that's such an opportunity to get to talk to someone like that.
I liked how honest he was, about by the time he got to, I don't know, the third or fourth one, he's just like, well, this one's going to pay for my kids to go to college and my new yacht. So like,
yeah.
Or like, Robert Kirkman said that about The Walking Dead, because everybody was like, oh, this show's going on forever. Why do you keep doing it? And he's just like, I don't know. I'm not watching it anymore. I'm on my yacht.
That's just how these sort of, when you make it big, there's really very little reason to stop. Because like when you think about it, sort of, even when you take a step back and look at it, it's like, okay, I can stop doing this and then sort of keep to whatever principles I have, or I can keep doing this and take all of the money I get to actually be able to make the things I really want to make.
Yeah, and that's another double-edged sword that, maybe you'll have to make that choice one day. I genuinely hope you do, but I don't know. I think it's just it's definitely better. I respect people more who stick to their principles, but I do appreciate the fact that, he made a quintillion dollars or whatever it is off of The Walking Dead. So now he can work on what he's truly passionate about.
Yeah. So it's like either way, like whichever decision you go with, I can really respect that. I can understand it. And it's like, just go with whatever suits you, man.
I think I would have the Five Nights at Freddy's guy on the show specifically because I think that would get a lot of attention, and then it would bring attention to people like you. Like, they would click on that.
That's marketing thinking right there. Yeah. That's how you get forward.
Yeah. No.
That's how you finally get in touch. That's how you finally get in touch with Dave Oshry.
Yeah, that's true. I really do like what I've seen so far, and I really do like the just genuinely fast-paced gameplay itself. How it's sort of, it feels like it's encouraging speedrunning.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it's very, very interesting, sort of, because I haven't really, like, I've sort of casually watched speedrunning every now and then with like Games Done Quick and all that, but actually getting to talk to people who like do speedruns and stuff has been very interesting. But there's also the downside that a lot of the times these people after a while know the game better than I do.
Yeah.
So they'll be like, oh, but what? Maybe you should do it so that in this very specific physics situation, a thing like this would happen. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like I played the game for the first time or something.
Yeah. It's a fun game in that even if you're going to speedrun it, it's not like Doom, where it's just like you can kind of go around and get the keys to open the door. You actually have to kill enemies to get through this door. So it'd be fun to watch like how they have to be good at the combat. They're going to have to really quickly get awesome at the combat.
Unless you play on 1.02 of the Prelude that lets you go out of bounds.
Oh, nice.
Those are I did fix those in the latter version, but in retrospect, I don't know if I should have, because in a way, those are like the kinds of things that only people who try to go out of bounds will be able to go out of bounds. So who am I to tell them not to?
I'm not sure. I guess it depends on you and like what your artistic view of it is. Like I talk a lot about. I think speedrunning keeps coming up not only because it's such a popular thing within gaming, but because it is something that I see a lot of developers kind of get not triggered by, but just like that's a thing that they're going to break my game. Like you see people take the game that you created with an intention. This is how I want it to be done. And then that's a whole community of people whose job it is basically to just reduce it down to the very basic, like, how do I get from point A to point B very fast? And then they end up breaking it or abusing, assets and different things like that.
And I think it's interesting because when I started making ULTRAKILL, I was very much, like I said before, I was really very much sort of set in stone, like this is how the game should be played and stuff. But sort of the further I keep getting into development, the more open I keep becoming to sort of these alternate ways of playing the game. So I really like, especially now, if someone like finds a way of like, oh, here's some kind of really weird glitch that lets you do this or that, then I before I would have just gone like, oh, I gotta fix that, but now I'll actually like think like, okay, is this something that would make the game unfun, or is it like a fun thing to do? And sort of like even outside of speedrunning, I recently added a assist menu to the game. And it's like, because otherwise I like earlier I would have never done that, but then I realized like some people just can't actually be able to have fun with the game without having that kind of help. So I think it's always best that the most possible amount of people will have fun, at least in their own way.
For sure, yeah. I think it's a new age. People are kind of used to having their gameplay fed to them, piece by piece, like tutorials and everything like that. It's not like how old are you?
I'm 23, I think. Okay. I forget these things.
You're the same age as me, roughly. I think I'm a year older than you are, but in our childhood, I remember playing, games where there was absolutely no help whatsoever, and you had to go buy a book. People don't remember that a lot now. It's like you buy the big player's guide. I even know people who still do that, strangely enough, and then kind of figure it out. And if you couldn't afford the player's guide, then you're on your own. You're figuring out how to play that game.
As a kid, that was like that didn't even matter. Like you could keep beating your head on a fucking stone wall for days on end, and you would eventually figure it out. But especially once you sort of grow up into an adult, you start realizing how much less time you have.
Yeah.
So you really can't. Well, yeah, like I sort of have begun to understand why so many games hold your hand nowadays. And even though I don't like how railroady games get nowadays, I do sort of understand it's at least on some levels necessary.
I just like to think that it's good that all that exists, and if that's what's popular, cool. But I've never liked the popular stuff in general. I've never been the kind of guy who just wanted to go watch the latest blockbuster movie or what. I want to see. I want to dig for my art, and so therefore I do.
Absolutely. And that's the best thing about the internet nowadays is that you can just go online and look at fucking Soviet art films from the late 60s or something. Yeah. And you can find it. You used to have to like actually be in like some kind of like a subculture circle, and even then you would only get what they found for you. But nowadays you can just go online and find anything. Like you can find such weird games if you just look for them. And it's a really interesting time for art in general. And I'm very, very happy about where music and films and games are going currently because of that. It's going to be a very controversial opinion, so I don't know if I should actually talk about it, but I think we're in a very interesting crossroads currently with retro FPSs in general, because they sort of had this resurgence in the past couple of years after like Strafe and Dusk and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of I don't know if it can be called a problem, but I feel like this is slowly starting to become a problem, which is that a lot of games that are going for this retro style, these sort of retro callback elements, are basically just like I feel like a lot of them are sort of just not really trying to be themselves. Like a lot of them are sticking way too close to the formula, and that's like making them seem too similar to each other. Which is like if you just think about the popular ones, then that's fine. But then you start like thinking about games like Hellbound and Hellhunt and
Yeah.
what's that? There's another one that I forget. It's called something similar to Strafe. But usually that's the problem. I don't remember these anymore because they start
To
seeming
muddle
so
together.
similar suddenly. And I think that's going to be, especially this year with so many of them coming out, I think that's going to start becoming a problem for these indie developers. I really feel bad for a lot of these people who are really passionate about this style specifically. And I think most likely all these games are really good. I haven't really played them because most of them are still in development, but I'm just really worried that they can't get themselves to stand out from the crowd soon anymore.
I think that that's going to be a real issue, and I think I know where it comes from, or at least I have an idea, is that uh, certain, there's a lot of people who are making these games throughout time that are just genuinely passionate about this specific type of thing, and that's what they wanted to make because artistically that's the direction they were headed in.
Mm.
And then once they do that and someone sees it successful, like for instance, let's say Dusk, like they see it, it becomes very successful. And then other people are like, their mind is that that's a market I can capitalize on now. And
Mm.
that's their motivation. And I don't really think that anybody's going through the trouble of, making a whole game that we're going to end up talking about, because if it's just a complete money grab, then we'll probably notice well ahead of time
Yeah.
that this game sucks. But I don't know. That is a part of it. There's definitely going to be people, and there probably already are, that are just trying to capitalize on what they see as a growing market. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be harder to stand out as well.
Yeah, because I think we're in a sort of interesting moment right now in sort of FPS. Well, I guess you could call it history in a way if you want to be really pretentious like I am. But we're in a sort of crossroads at the moment where these sort of retro FPSs are currently, they're still, I think it's safe to say they're currently still kind of a fad, this sort of current renaissance. But
Yeah.
I think with depending on how things go this year and maybe even next year, it might actually become its own sort of stable subgenre. And I think that's really, really exciting. So I really hope that sort of we don't end up having the same problem that we had in the late 90s, where all these games are just trying to use such a similar formula that they start blending together.
Yeah, I don't think we're talking about Doom clones necessarily. Like,
Yeah.
especially the stuff that I've been, seeing lately has all been, for the most part, it looks this way. It looks or kind of plays similarly to these old school games. It harkens
Mhm.
back to that era, but uh, mechanically very different. The difference between your game and something like Nightmare Reaper, that both
Mhm.
we could both say that they fit into the same category, but Nightmare Reaper has
Mhm.
got like all these roguelite elements,
Oh
and
yeah.
everything, like randomly generated levels and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
It's stuff that has nothing to do with Doom. Even storytelling wise, it's kind of a completely different sort of game, and just that
Definitely.
and then for your game, even it there's no similarity in the gameplay really between
Mhm.
this and any other game in the quote unquote genre that we're talking about.
Yeah. So that's kind of what makes this really interesting, is that I think at least, especially with Ultra Kill, I've seen a lot of people
Mhm.
complaining that, why are you saying this is a retro FPS, because it's not really a retro FPS. And I completely understand that, because it's so different at this point that I think it's understandable to not even want to call it retro anymore. And with Nightmare Reaper as well, it's like we both these games are sort of taking inspiration from the genre, but not really
Right.
taking sort of not really going with the same kind of formula. And I think that's those kinds of games popping out every now and then are, I think, what's gonna keep this genre going and keeping it stable instead of just becoming like dying out. But I think that kind of sounds very selfish for me to say about my own game. So I don't know. I really don't know a whole lot about these things. I'm just a random guy from Finland who goes to school and makes a game every now and then.
That's really cool though, man. That's good. It's good to do that and just to have a passion and go for it. Where, whatever. It feels like just talking to you that you're not out to just sell out and make a shitload of money. And I'm sure if you got the opportunity to do that, I think you should make a lot of money. But it seems
I hope I do, but that's not my main goal.
Right, your passion is to make a game that you believe in.
Yeah, because it's like really the only reason I even like. The only reason I'm gonna sell this game for money instead of giving it out for free is so that I can continue to make games in the future. Because I really don't have much interest in making a lot of money. I just need enough to survive, and really that's enough for me. Because I really don't care about buying things or having like a big house or a cool car or anything. I just wanna put myself out there in art and games and as much as possible.
Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you have anything else that you want to say before we get out of here?
I want to shield some of my friends, if that's okay.
Get after it. Let's do it.
Go ahead. I mentioned them before, but White Hell, very interesting sort of Finnish post-apocalyptic FPS, sort of taking inspiration from like Return to Castle Wolfenstein and some like Quake in there as well, and it has a very interesting, very very interesting sort of tone and very sardonic sense of humor that's really fun and interesting setting. So you should go check that out. There's also Visorfest. I don't know if you've heard of this game before.
I have. I'm following it very closely.
Yeah, that's a very interesting game as well. I think they're having a demo come out soon-ish. Probably like this year at some point, maybe even in a couple months. But that's definitely a game I'm also following, and it seems like it's going to be shaping up to be something really cool. Let's see, is there anything else? I think I'm forgetting people, and I'm so very, very sorry to all those people.
And everybody makes mistakes or has brain farts. I think I've proven that myself today. So.
Oh yeah, it's fine. The flaws are what makes us interesting as people.
That's true.
So I think, yeah, just keep track of definitely try to everyone listening to this podcast, just try to look up even small projects on Twitter and follow these FPS developers because there's a very interesting sort of network of very small, very unknown developers making very interesting projects right now.
Much agreed. I think that is the coolest thing about doing this is just the people you meet.